Hi all, let's have a look at another epic game from the TSAC Super Final Season 14. So Leela playing against Stockfish, playing with the white pieces. So this is round 53. Leela is at this point of the match 1 point ahead of Stockfish, which is unheard of. Stockfish has been the reigning champion at least for the last few years. So it actually has rarely been losing in any match. So an unusual situation for Stockfish. This opening, let's see, d4 from Leela, the opening book given, the Slav defense. And we have this early closure of the bishop here to support the pawn. It seems quite modest. And it also allows black a seemingly active, aggressive move to let that bishop outside of the pawn chain rather than keeping it enclosed. So we see knight c3. There is a slight downside of black's play here, exposed after e6, which is knight h4, and this is a popular continuation in over the board chess, checking with ChessBase live book. Bishop g4, queen b3. Now quite often here, instead of queen c7 as played, queen b6 has been played more frequently. For example, h3, g4, taking on g6. This kind of thing has been seen before. White's thought to have an advantage, maybe even approaching a clear advantage. So that's interesting. So we see actually queen c7 though. h3, bishop h4, g6, sorry, g4, bishop g6. g5 though. Now this is a little bit of a novelty. There's only about 5 games in ChessBase Live Book with this, compared to many more with just taking on g6 and keeping the pawns as they are intact and just fianchettoing the bishop. Or fianchettoing the bishop if you prefer the pronunciation there. Bishop g2 here. This is thought to be a small edge for white. So Leela's continuation is very, very interesting. Now sometimes one of the points of g5, which has been evidenced in over the board chess, is to be able to take on g6 and then play for h4, h5 later. Very, very aggressive use of pawns indeed, and maybe even castling queenside. So very interesting idea. We have in this position d takes c4, making this tempo gainer to get that d5 for the knight. White took with the bishop. In the game, there's a stem game with queen takes c4, which happened in a high-level game, Drev against Mikhail Gurevich, Capel de Grand, I believe, 2000. So this was a win for white. Drev beats Gurevich in this line with queen takes c4. But here we have bishop takes c4. So we're coming out of standard stem games. Knight d5. Now knight takes g6, h takes e4. Knight takes c3 is played. On knight b4, this knight can be kicked, and here actually, after bishop e3, you can see white's got a nice cozy centre here, and it should be a clear advantage. Castling queenside, there's still a prospect of a pawn break with h4, h5, or even d5 in the centre at the right time. On knight e7, in fact, there's a tactical move, bishop f4, to try and lure the queen away from b7. And white has a big advantage, but there could be some technical difficulties getting the queen out after winning the rook. But on deep analysis, it seems white can play this and eventually break out. Eventually. So knight takes c3 is played, b takes, knight d7. Bishop e2 is played. And this gives prospect for the bishop to come to f3 later as required, as well as bishop g4 might be handy, as well as supporting h4, h5. One of the main strategic breaks is supported. Bishop d6, e5, bishop e7. You might think that's a bit of provocation there. King f1. Yeah, the main strategic break is h5. So why move the rook or anything? In fact, h3 would drop if the rook moved. So b5. This looks a little bit asking for it, this move. But what is black actually doing here? Castling queenside doesn't seem that safe with this semi-open b-file here. So b5 though is offering a target, surely. Has Stockfish got some greedy Grinch idea behind this? After a4, we have queen a5, pinning the pawn. And in fact, yes, this pin pawn is going to be a Stockfish victim soon. B takes a4 might be plausible, for example knight b6, but black's structure has been compromised now, and white does stand better positionally because of this compromise. So we have queen a5, king g2, knight b6. This is agreed. That pinned pawn is going to be eliminated. Will there be a revenge plot made against Stockfish after it wins that pawn? On b takes here, then clearly, rook takes. There is queen d5, but this doesn't really help black. White has good queenside pressure. This is very, very comfortable for white, these variations. And if we look at this again, say king d8, c4, this is just very, very comfortable. Good advantages for white. So knight b6, Stockfish will eliminate the pawn. Queen c2, Leela's kind of casual about this, looking at the position more holistically, it seems. Knight takes a4. We have b takes a4 as an alternative, but then c4 is good, and if rook h4, f4, this position, this variation, shows actually king g3 is a very handy move to evict that rook and then just build up a dominant position like this. So yeah, there are some interesting ideas here on b takes with c4 in mind. Yeah, it seems f4 is pretty good. Bishop e3 might allow c5 with a bit of play, but no need. Just f4 locks out that rook, which might want to participate in this game. Let's have a look also. If we had c5 here, then there's d5 is much more effectual. Ed, king g3 even, and then bishop f3, and this is very, very tasty for white. This kind of scenario is very, very interesting with a big advantage for white. It's nice for the king to be on g3 here. Okay, so we have knight takes a4. Stockfish has won the first pawn, won the battle, but will it win the war of this game? Bishop f3, looking at c6. We have queen c7. On rook c8, as an alternative to defend that pawn, bishop d2, queen e4. This position looks as though black's under a lot of pressure, for example. But maybe an interesting way to go as an alternative. It's not totally unplayable, it seems. But we have queen c7, h4, queen d7, and now this break h5. If black took here on h5, if black had castled, then c4 is actually interesting. Yeah, the rooks are potentially connected, and a lot of pressure if queen takes d4. So let's say, or even just c takes. There's lots of possibilities. It's just asking for it. So let's say queen c7, trying to batten down the hatches. Bishop e3, rook takes. This is just desperate, but white can really get a massive attack position with a big advantage. So g takes was played. g6. So yeah, this is now 2 pawns down for white, but white's just looking holistically at this position. Undermining the pawns, maybe making c4 and d5 more effectual pretty soon. We have f6, e takes, bishop takes, rook e1. It's interesting the use of this rook, because you might think bishop g4 is handy to keep that pin. So I thought during the live stream, bishop d2, rook a1, bishop g4. So this was an interesting decision from my perspective of the question of which rook to use. But on bishop d2, knight b6, this one, it seems black castling queenside, and it should actually be good prospects for both sides, equal maybe even. So rook e1. So white is 2 pawns down here. What is the compensation here? Is it black's king's not very safe, basically? Rook f8 is played. On castling queenside, then rook takes a4 is interesting. This really does look crushing on the light squares. In particular, things are falling apart for black. So rook f8, not castling queenside, queen b3. On rook takes a4, this is very tempting. So for example, this continuation, there's a prospect of d5, and it looks extremely dangerous. But this position, black can play rook f6, and after bishop takes f6, not take the queen, which loses. So a kind of seesaw type mechanism. That should be even there. But if black played king g8, then it actually loses for black. However, with precise play, black just equalises here with king e8. So this whole idea of rook takes a4, it seems it's not quite enough. Very, very tempting, perhaps, from human eyes to just break through the centre, kings in the centre. But concretely, it's just not enough because of rook f6. Yeah, this line is yet to be, the queen hanging here anyway. So yeah, it's with best play. It seems black can draw that. So queen b3, interesting decision. Bishop e7. We have c4. Rook c8 is played. Okay, so now c takes, and now Leela doesn't fall into a tactical trap here, thankfully. I thought intuitively keep the queens on, and I was surprised by this, because Tao, in Mikhail Tao's games, he would often try and keep the queens on. And there's even queen dances quite a lot in Tao games to try and keep the queens on. But here, rook takes e6 is rudely interrupted. I wonder if you can guess if I give you 5 seconds. What would black play here? Okay, there's rook takes f3. This is the rude interruption. And if queen takes, then there's queen takes e6. And if king takes, then there's rook c3, which is pretty nasty. So, and let's see, after rook takes f3, if rook takes e7, black ends up being more than fine here. Black's got a big advantage there, technically. So, yeah, we have queen takes e6, which I thought, okay, is there enough here? Because this is a pawn down, but the bishop pair, pawn down, bishop pair, king still kind of unsafe. Interesting. So, queen takes was played. Rook takes, rook f6 here. On rook d8, it seems bishop a3 and then bishop c6. The bishop is kind of lethal with the king in the centre sometimes. Rook f6. Rook e5 not only keeps the pin, that checkbox, but also hits h5. So just modestly moving the rook back, or d5, just don't cut it. You know, d5, this doesn't cut it, having an advanced pawn there. Black's got loads of play. And is looking at c1 here. That's fine for black. Black's winning there. And if rook e2, not eyeing h5, then rook takes g6 and king f8. So without the rook takes h5, there's no menacing idea of rook h8 winning the c8 rook, which there is in the game continuation with rook e5. So we have rook takes g6, and now there's a threat of not just bishop takes h5 pinning the rook, but rook takes h5. So black handles at least bishop takes h5, but not this. Now threatening rook h8 check, winning the rook. We have king f7. If knight c3, yeah, just to put it on the board, this just wins the rook for nothing. If king g8, then there's bishop d5 check and rook h8 mating. So king f7, bishop d5, king e8, bishop d2. The king's being put back in the centre, basically. White's still a pawn down, though. But look at this bishop. It's got access to a5 in some lines. a6. And we have rook e1. The king's really got a responsibility to hold on to that bishop. And we've also got unprotected pieces in the position. This is the only piece that's actually, well, apart from the bishop. These two rooks are not protected at the moment. We have king d7. On knight c3, just to show some tactical liabilities, bishop e6 and then rook h8 check. Bishop f5 discovered check is very nice. This kind of wins material and winning. So we have king d7, king in the centre, bishop e4, hitting the rook moves, rook d5 check. Here, bishop g5 is also, it seems, a viable alternative. For example, here, bishop f5 check picks up material and winning. But rook d5 was also strong, bishop d6. Interestingly, if king e8, then rook e5 again. And here, in fact, not bishop f5, but bishop d2 is really strong, introducing bishop h3, lovely stuff, and hitting the rook with hitting the bishop with the doubled rooks. If bishop f5, rook takes, and then white's only got a small edge. After bishop g2, if bishop a3 to get out the bishop out, then bishop h3 check, and then taking on c8, big advantage. Here, if rook just went back to e3 as well, rook e3 instead, let's have a quick look at that, instead of taking on c8, then this is also pretty strong for white as well. Yeah, there's a lot of winning lines here all of a sudden. So bishop d6, we have bishop f5 check. So the king, didn't move anywhere, didn't move to e8. If it moved to, by the way, if it moved to c7, let's have a look at the fun of the bishop here. Bishop f5, rook d7 check, rook takes e7. Yeah, just winning. Here also, if d5, bishop h3, and this is just winning. Just basically maintain the pin with bishop h3, and there's nothing to do about that. Okay, so bishop d6. The king has a big responsibility with that bishop. We have bishop f5 just winning the exchange though. Yeah, it's costing black some material now. Leela's getting a return on her initial pawn investment of 2 pawns. So it's like the Superman film where it was underestimated when Superman beat the computer, gave him this rapidly evolving liquid, uncontrollable. It's like the double pawn sack, I thought, in this game. It's just uncontrollable, uncalculatable double pawn sack. And Stockfish is now crumbling. Rook takes f5, knight b2 is played. If knight b6, king e2 is neat to get the king to d3. This is neat. White's getting a big advantage there without too much hassle. So knight b2, king e2 anyway, and now rook g5. The rook's double on g7, that's protected. Check. Now bishop e3. White's starting to look pretty solid there, but has black got 2 connected passed pawns? Technically yes, but are they a target? Here now, if rook takes c1, it's offering 0 resistance. I mean, not 0, but more limited resistance. The a6 pawn drops off, and that's it, really. So we have rook b8, bishop f4, king d2. So the exchange up, very happy for white in this position. The exchange up, and these pawns are now, in the firing line. This is in the firing line. This pawn is it's just there to be taken. Stockfish believed there's no point even trying to defend it. If a5, rook takes a5. Otherwise, rook's on the 7 for rook a8. This is just too dangerous for black. There's other stuff. Or rook a5 to hit a6, potentially. So bishop f6. We have king c2. So that's more accurate than taking on a6, not to have d4 weak. If white had taken on a6, bishop takes d4. White's still doing fine, but this is less hassle. King c2, hit the knight, then take a6 at leisure, hitting the knight again, basically the key point. So more accurate. So just a raw exchange up now, just for no pawns either. So now this b pawn is being worked on. So we have rook here. Now this is careful, not rook takes b4, which allows a knight fork, which is still okay for white, but might not be winning because there's lots of table-based territory to navigate. So take this pawn when it's safe to do so. That's the key thing. Rook d6, rook takes, knight c6, the rook moves. And here, the exchange up, we see some interesting technique. Leela now actually wants to get her king in the game. This is simplifying this knight g5, but what else? This d pawn strong. It's building up for white. So what is Leela's winning plan here? Okay, some high level shuffling. And the king actually wants to go up the board soon. You'll see that the Leela king working her way up the board soon. Yes, the king's working the way up the board. Eventually, I think the king march starts now. The king's walking up the board, and now that blockader resistance is being tampered with. The pass pawn is pushed, gaining in strength, and you know what, I think I've overshot the entire game. The game actually ended on move 111. I keep doing this. Rook d e3 was the final game end, actually, with the king on c6. So bishop g5, the game actually ended here. Pardon me, the game ended here. Now this is just for illustration what happened after this. So both engines here at move 111 thought it was absolutely winning for white. So this is just for illustration purposes, to see how we actually, as an example, get close to queening the pawn, just for illustration. Just eventually that pawn could be pushed and it'll be winning material. Okay, so I'll take you back to the final position of the game, and this win puts Leela 2 points up. And I really think everyone should be paying attention to this match. I think chess books will need to be revised. I think this is the end of approaching, near the end of the AB era, which is chess books have been vastly improved from AB engine checking, and I think new revisions of books are now perhaps possible for opening theory, because it seems at the time of me doing this recording, Leela is holding herself on the reverse side of this opening. So this particular branch of the Slav is not that bad, but Leela's play with white has been exemplary. So I think it's time to start revising the opening books as a result of this game and other games which the TSEC start positions point to. So a very, very exciting time in chess where this tension, this storm has broken through. The clash of the alpha-beta engines versus the neural network wave of engines, which has now started, first with Alpha Zero and now with the open source open Leela project, which anyone can use to assist them as their analytical assistants. So big implications, I believe, for chess generally. If you enjoyed this game video, then please click on the top left box, which should appear shortly. Become a member at chessbold.net, play against other YouTubers, and you can also test yourself on all the variations covered in this and other game videos recently on the improved menu puzzle books option, which has a link to the annotated game itself. Comments, questions, donations, see the description. Like, share, subscribe with that notification bell. Really appreciated. Thanks very much.